He made his dying mother beg for help in the middle of a crowd just to humiliate her. Cameras up, eyes on, pride unblinking. But when she finally spoke, she didn't plead. She passed a judgment that shattered his entire world on live camera. Before we dive in, smash that subscribe button, hit like, and tell us where you're watching from. Canada, London, Seoul, Johannesburg? Your city's going on our map. Once upon a skyline of glass and steel lived Nathan Hayes, the man headlines called invincible. He ran meetings from corner offices, signed deals from back seats, and smiled with the confidence of someone who thought love was a souvenir you buy after winning. In another part of the same city, Elizabeth Hayes measured her days in little victories. Breathing without help for an hour, finishing a crossword, folding letters she never sent. She kept a photo of a boy on her dresser. The boy's name was Nathan. The world said he'd raised himself. Elizabeth just smiled and said, "He knows better. We will get there." But first, how did a son become the spectacle of his own making? Nathan Hayes loved proof. Proof in stock tickers, gala photos, and awards engraved with his name. From his father's faded auto parts store, he'd built Hayes Global, polished it like a mirror, and learned to love whatever the mirror loved back. He wore success like a tailored suit, not a wrinkle out of place. Interviews called him self-made. Investors called him inevitable. And when someone asked about family, he let the silence do the answering. Dead parents make clean biographies. Across town, Elizabeth traced the edge of a hospital pamphlet with her finger and turned down the nurse's offer of better insurance paperwork. "I'll be fine," she said, smiling the way only mothers can. She watched her son on TV, the volume low, the pride loud. "That's my boy," she whispered to the empty room. Then the internet found her. A nurse named Delilah posted a photo of Elizabeth in her wheelchair, eyes glowing at a screen where Nathan promised $5 million to help struggling parents. The caption was simple. "She says that's her son." The comments were not simple at all. Why isn't he with her? If that's his mom, why is she here alone? Billionaire with a conscience? Or just good PR? By morning, a trending question had replaced the stock ticker in Nathan's world. Where is your mother? Nathan didn't flinch. He delegated. His PR chief, Victor Lang, slid a tablet across the table. Sentiment is turning. We need a public gesture. Something emotional. Something you control. Control, Nathan repeated, tasting the word. Plan it. I'll make amends on my stage. He didn't say with my mother. He said on my stage. Elizabeth's phone rang from a number she didn't know. "Mrs. Hayes. We're organizing a family and forgiveness event in Times Square. Nathan wants to honor you publicly. Transportation will be provided. Oxygen support too. He wants you there." Her hands trembled. The news was an answered prayer and a warning siren all at once. She pressed a palm to her heart and said, "Tell him. I'll come." Delilah helped her pick a soft sweater and pinned a small brooch, Nathan's father's gift from years ago. "You look beautiful," Delilah said. "He'll be proud." Elizabeth smiled gently. "He already is. He just forgot how to show it." The lights were mounted before sunrise. Screens the size of apartment buildings looped Nathan's charity clips between brand logos. Influencers rehearsed intros. "We're live with the reunion you've all been waiting for." Backstage, Victor counted camera angles. 3 on Nathan, 1 on Mrs. Hayes, 2 roaming. If she cries, push in. Nathan checked his cufflinks, the same pair he wore the day he closed his first 9-figure deal. Victor leaned in. "Say second chances." People melt for second chances. Nathan nodded but didn't practice. He didn't need to. The script wasn't for him to remember. It was for his mother to perform. When Elizabeth's van pulled in, Delilah squeezed her hand. "Are you okay?" "I will be," Elizabeth answered, as if she'd seen the ending and chosen it anyway. She rolled into a sea of phones. The crowd hushed. Nathan stepped forward, face lit like a billboard. "Today," he announced, "we celebrate the love that makes us who we are." Elizabeth lifted her eyes to the son she'd once bandaged and fed and taught to say thank you. Up close, his suit looked expensive and his heartbeat looked afraid. "Nathan," she whispered, "you look tired." He smiled with his teeth. "We're live, Mother. Smile big, speak little." He guided her toward the center, chin tilted at the cameras. Victor gave a small nod. A spotlight fell like judgment. "Mrs. Hayes," the host said brightly, "would you like to say something to your son?" Nathan didn't wait. He leaned toward her ear, the microphone still hot. "Make it simple," he said. "Tell them you forgive me. Tell them you're grateful. Beg if you want the world to believe it." A ripple went through the crowd, the kind that happens when a truth leaks by accident. Elizabeth closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were not the eyes of a woman asking permission. They were the eyes of a mother who remembered everything. Phones rose like a forest. Onlookers leaned in. A suited man hid behind his fingers. An old woman in a wheelchair lifted both hands, not to plead but to present the truth. "Nathan," she said, voice steadying on each syllable, "I don't need your stage to speak. I need your heart to listen." The hush that followed wasn't silence. It was a countdown. She could have begged. She could have played the part written for her by a son who worshipped glass towers. Instead, she chose a different role. She chose witness. Back in the control booth, Victor felt a chill. "This is off script," he muttered. "Cut to promo, cut to." But the camera ops didn't move. They were listening too. Nathan's jaw tightened. He reached for the mic. Elizabeth held it a little closer. "You wanted me here," she said softly. "You wanted me to help. So let me." And that is the moment the picture-perfect world Nathan built began to crack. Not because a mother begged, but because a mother refused to. What she said next would bury pride, unearth secrets, and pull a billion-dollar mask off in the middle of a crowd. In the next few minutes, we go behind the stage lights, back to the nights that shaped Nathan, the debt no money could erase, and the reason a simple envelope would one day matter more than any award he ever won. Phones were still raised in the square when we cut away from the blinding spotlight and rolled time backward. Weeks before the crowd, before the tears, back to a quiet hallway that smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and lavender lotion. This was Hawthorne Care Home. Residents called it the Little Lighthouse, because no matter how stormy life got, its windows stayed warm at night. In room 14B, a woman with silver hair kept the blinds open so the morning could find her first. Her name was Elizabeth Hayes. "Good morning, sunshine," said Nurse Delilah, pushing in a cart with tea, oatmeal, and a vase stuffed with garden daisies. Delilah's braids were tied up in a blue scarf. Her smile did half the healing before the medicine arrived. "You slept." Elizabeth chuckled softly. "I prayed more than I slept. That counts for something. It counts for everything." Delilah checked the monitor on the oxygen concentrator, then adjusted Elizabeth's blanket the way daughters do, not just nurses. In the hallway, two residents argued in slow motion about a chess move, laughter rising and falling like a lazy tide. When Delilah wheeled the cart back, she winked. 10 minutes. I'm bringing the whole fan club. They came like they always did, Mr. Alvarez with the Sinatra voice, Sister B with pocket peppermints, and Auntie Mags who always told the same joke about getting old being just a long appointment you can't skip. They settled in around the TV, already tuned to a financial channel. There he was, Nathan Hayes, standing at a podium taller than the boy Elizabeth remembered. He wore the city like a crown and a suit like a promise. The cheerin' at the bottom read, Hayes pledges $5 million for struggling parents. That's my son, Elizabeth said, the way she always did. Not loud, not boastful. Just full. Mr. Alvarez nodded. He looks important. He is, Elizabeth whispered, as if importance might spook if you spoke too loudly. She leaned forward, tracing the TV glass with the ghost of her fingertips. The camera angle shifted. The room lights flickered. For a moment, her breath thinned, but she steadied it with a smile. The door clicked. Dr. Klein entered with a folder and the careful eyes of a man who respects truth but hates delivering it. Morning, Miss Hayes. Doctor, she said, kind, steady. Delilah dimmed the TV. Nathan's face faded to a silver reflection. Dr. Klein sat at the edge of the bed. I've gone over your latest tests. Your heart's working too hard. We can manage the symptoms, but stronger intervention gives you a real shot at time. Good time. Stronger, Elizabeth repeated, knowing what he meant, a procedure, a bill, a burden. She laid a palm against the blanket, as if smoothing a wrinkle out of worry. How much is a real shot, doctor? Dr. Klein named a number that makes rooms colder. Insurance doesn't cover the full course. We can apply for grants, but I'm running out of calendar, not courage. She smiled so he wouldn't have to. I've had a good life. Don't fuss on the bill for the part that isn't mine to pay. Delilah shook her head, gentle but stubborn. Don't you dare decide you're a bill. Elizabeth squeezed her hand. My son has done enough. Dr. Klein started to object, then stopped, because the sentence wasn't about money at all. It was about mercy. He nodded, eyes glassing. We'll keep you comfortable. And we'll keep you surrounded. Deal, she said, as if they'd just negotiated a small kindness. When the doctor left, Delilah turned the TV back up. Nathan's speech resumed. Polished vowels, perfect posture, phrases about responsibility and community and the families who raised us. Elizabeth didn't hear the headlines. She heard a 7-year-old boy apologizing for breaking a toy. She heard a 10-year-old promising to be brave at his father's funeral. She heard a teenager declaring he'd build something so big his mother would never worry again. Look at him, she whispered. He kept his promise. Delilah didn't say what she was thinking. That promises sometimes keep the wrong parts of us. Instead, she picked up her phone. Smile, she said, and snapped a photo. Elizabeth in her wheelchair, chin lifted, eyes wet with pride, Nathan frozen mid-sentence on the screen. She posted it to her private account with a caption meant for 30 friends, not the world. She says that's her son, the billionaire. 10 minutes later, a volunteer from the front desk rushed in. Ms. D. The post. People are sharing it. She turned the screen to show a waterfall of hearts and comments. She's his mom. Why isn't he with her? Somebody tag Nathan Hayes. Delilah's stomach dipped. Oh no. It's all right, Elizabeth said. More to Delilah's guilt than to the internet. People forget that love doesn't always look like a hallway selfie. The door opened again, this time with entitlement. A young man in a bomber jacket slid in, camera already up. Hey, Ms. Hayes. I'm with Cityscope. We're doing a piece on Hayes donation. Mind if we grab a quick pic? The public loves a human angle. Delilah stepped in front. We don't allow media without. It's fine, Elizabeth said softly, a diplomat to the end. She smoothed her sweater, lifted her chin, and let the flash steal another piece of quiet. Please write something kind. Kind sells, he lied, and was gone before the echo. By evening, the photo was everywhere. The headline wasn't kind. It was bait. The billionaire who loves families. Where's his own mother? The comments section turned into a courtroom with no judge and too many juries. Clips of Nathan's speech were spliced beside Elizabeth's photo like before and after shots. The algorithm smelled blood. It fed. Across the river, on the glass floor of Hayes Global, a war room lit up with dashboards and damage reports. Victor Lang, head of PR, scrolled past sentiment charts and swallowed. "We've got a problem," he said to the table. "We go into the International Impact Awards in 10 days, and right now the trending narrative is, billionaire abandons dying mom while preaching charity." Executives argued in currents. Deny, deflect, delay. Victor raised a palm. "We won't outshout outrage. We redirect it. We rebuild empathy." Nathan stood at the window, city glittering under him like a necklace. How? A staged reunion. Victor paced as he pitched. "We invite your mother to a public event. Call it family and forgiveness. Cameras, partners, the works. You thank her. She forgives you. We announce expanded funding for elder care." The story becomes, man faces past, mother blesses son. The award committee sees heart, not headlines. Silence hummed like electricity. Nathan turned from the glass. "And if she refuses?" Victor's mouth twitched. "Mothers don't refuse the sons they raised." Nathan smirked, the kind that says he's already 3 moves ahead. "Then let's give them a show." His assistant shifted, unhappy. "Sir, perhaps a private." "A private apology," Nathan snapped, "won't stop a public fire." In the corner, a social media manager watched a new clip spike. Elizabeth laughing with residents. TV glowing behind her like a halo. She whispered, "They love her." Victor heard and nodded. "Exactly. So we let the world love her with you." "Schedule it," Nathan said. "Lights, stage, script. I'll handle the rest." He didn't mean love. He meant control. And control always demands an audience. Back at Hawthorne, the little lighthouse was not built for storms like trending topics. Well-wishers and voyeurs walked the same hall. Delilah started escorting visitors in 2s, then 1s, then not at all. Elizabeth noticed the strain and decided, like she always did, to be the calmest person in the room. She wrote thank you notes to strangers who sent flowers. She gave Mr. Alvarez a compliment big enough to keep him singing all week. She slipped peppermints into Sister Bea's pocket with a wink like a secret handshake. When the oxygen hissed louder, she hummed to it like an old friend. In the late afternoon, when the light warmed the floor, Elizabeth asked for the TV remote. Nathan's face appeared again mid-promise. She rested her palm on the screen. "Look at you," she said. "Still trying to carry the world alone." Delilah lifted the trash bag, pretending to fuss, hiding tears. "He'll see you, Missy." "Oh, he sees me," Elizabeth answered, eyes bright with something gentler than hope and tougher than certainty. "He just doesn't remember how to look." The phone rang. Delilah picked up. "Hawthorne Care Home, this is." She paused, eyes flicking to Elizabeth. "Yes. She's here." She handed the receiver to Elizabeth. Mouthed Hayes Global. Elizabeth pressed the phone to her ear. The line clicked, then a woman's voice. Smooth, rehearsed. "Mrs. Hayes, this is Avery with the Hayes Foundation. Mr. Hayes is organizing a family and forgiveness event next week in Times Square. He would be honored if you'd attend as our special guest. Transportation and medical support included. We'd love to celebrate your story." Delilah watched Elizabeth's face. Fear, then memory, then mercy. Elizabeth's thumb stroked the phone cord like she was soothing it. "I'll come," she said, voice steady. "Wonderful," Avery replied. "We'll send details. Thank you for helping Mr. Hayes share this beautiful moment." Elizabeth hung up and let the room breathe again. She looked at the daisies at the TV, at the picture on her dresser of a boy holding a paper crown he'd made in kindergarten. Her smile was small and unstoppable. "My boy remembers me," she whispered. "Do you think Nathan really plans to make peace? Or is this just another PR stunt? Comment your guess below." Morning cracked open like a spotlight. Times Square was already dressed for a miracle. Screens waking up in ripples, banners unfurling in the wind, a white stage gleaming at the center like a polished confession booth. Above it all, giant letters floated on LED blue. The Hayes Foundation. Family Initiative, Family and Forgiveness. Live. Technicians barked cues. Camera cranes swung like steel birds. A drone traced lazy circles over the crowd barriers as volunteers taped down cables and polished lecterns that would never know the weight of the truth they were about to hold. Backstage, a production manager pointed at the tickers. At top of the hour we roll hero reel. Then the host brings up Mr. Hayes and the mother. He didn't say her name. He didn't need to. The city knew it now. At Hawthorne Care Home, the little lighthouse glowed brighter than usual. Nurse Delilah had laid out a dove-gray cardigan, a soft scarf, and Elizabeth's brooch, small and oval, a memory pinned to fabric. The other residents hovered at the door, pretending not to hover. "Let me," Delilah murmured, buttoning the cardigan with the patience of a friend and the tenderness of a daughter. Her fingers shook only once. Elizabeth caught it. "I'm not porcelain," she teased. "You're something rarer," Delilah said. "You're good." A knock. A young reporter, nervous, sincere, stood there holding a supermarket bouquet like it was sacred. "Mrs. Hayes. I wanted to give you these. My mom watched your clip and cried. She asked me to say, 'Be brave.'" Elizabeth took the flowers as if they were made of breath. "Tell your mother she already made me brave." The care home van arrived with a ramp and 2 volunteers. As they wheeled her out, Mr. Alvarez sang 3 bars of "Fly Me to the Moon." Sister B pressed peppermints into Delilah's palm. Auntie Mags called after them, "Don't let those cameras steal your soul." Elizabeth lifted her hand and waved back, delicate and regal. "They can't take what I already gave away." On the other side of the river, Nathan Hayes stood in a private prep tent rehearsing charm like a muscle memory. Victor Lang watched the timer on a tablet. Next to him, an assistant held a page of talking points. Forgiveness, family, second chances, legacy. Nathan practiced aloud, eyes flat, cadence perfect. "We all make mistakes. Today is about healing, about honoring the woman who made me who I am." Victor nodded. "Good. Clean. Say her name early." Nathan smoothed a cufflink. "Names humanize." "I know." He turned to Avery from the Hayes Foundation. "Stage picture." Avery outlined it quickly. Elizabeth center, Nathan to her right, host left. Hero footage rolling on the screens. Young Nathan with science fair ribbons, teenage Nathan volunteering, grown Nathan cutting a ribbon. The past as product. Nathan studied the mock-up, then lowered his voice so only Avery and his assistant could hear. "Make sure she looks poor enough to sell the story." The assistant flinched. "Sir." "Simple," Nathan said. "Casual as weather. No glam squad. Keep the cardigan. Wheelchair center. People trust humility." The assistant, Jonah, swallowed hard. "This feels wrong." Nathan didn't look up. Feelings don't trend. Victor cut in fast, papering over the crack. Optics are compassion. We can't control the headlines, but we can control the frame. The tent flap opened. A stagehand stuck his head in. "We've got a full house. Influencers on the barricades. Cityscope is live. 10 minutes. Nathan smiled into a mirror he didn't need. The mirror smiled back. The van slid into a private bay behind the stage. Sound rolled in like the ocean. Voices, horns, the electric buzz of a city pretending to be generous. Delilah steadied the wheelchair as Elizabeth took the first breath of outside air. She lifted her chin, tasting the day the way some people taste soup. Carefully, with gratitude. "Ready?" Delilah asked. "As I'll ever be." They moved down a narrow corridor lined with posters. Family. Forgiveness. Future. Every word was capitalized, as if mercy were a brand. A volunteer clipped a thin mic to Elizabeth's cardigan. "For the audience," he chirped. Elizabeth smiled politely. "I thought I already had one." They came to the waiting area and stopped. Through the curtain, Times Square opened like a stadium of faces. The LED boards were pure daylight. The crowd cheered at nothing particular because cheering had begun to live there. A runner with a headset jogged up. "Mrs. Hayes, Mr. Hayes will greet you on stage after the host intro. We'll cue you." He turned to Delilah. "Caregiver stays off camera." Delilah blinked. "I'm not a prop. I'm her nurse." "Copy," the runner said, "which is production for I heard you but I don't care." The host's voice boomed. "New York City, are we ready to celebrate family?" The crowd answered like a storm. Delilah squeezed Elizabeth's hand. "I'll be right at the edge." "I know," Elizabeth said. "You always are." They rolled her out into the heat of thousands of eyes. Gasps swelled, then softened into applause. Phones rose. Red dots blinked. The jumbo screen framed her face, and for a strange second, she saw herself looking back. Wrinkles like gentle rivers, eyes the same blue as the day she taught a boy to tie his shoes. The host leaned toward her with a pearly smile. "Mrs. Hayes, welcome. You look wonderful." "Thank you," she said. "I feel seen." From stage right, Nathan strode on, commanding, immaculate. The crowd crescendoed. He lifted a hand, drinking the noise like a man who'd been thirsty a long time without knowing it. He came close enough for the cameras to believe proximity was intimacy. Elizabeth opened her arms for a hug. Nathan sidestepped, offering his hands instead, polite as a handshake with a stranger. "Mother," he said for the microphones, the word tasting like a role he'd just been assigned. "Thank you for being here." Her smile flickered, then settled brighter. "Where else would I be?" They turned to the audience together. The drone dipped for a hero shot. The screens cut to childhood pictures. Birthday candles, crooked smiles. People in the barricades sighed the way crowds sigh when they're told they're watching something important. Nathan leaned down, face still a public asset. "Let's make this moment unforgettable." His breath cooled her cheek. She heard the old boy under the new man and chose to answer both. "Nathan," she murmured, "moments are like people. They don't belong to cameras. They belong to God." He didn't respond. He looked past her, eyes tracking a lens. Victor flashed a two-finger cue from the wings. Nathan took his place behind the lectern. The host lifted a hand for silence. The room obeyed, and Nathan began the speech he had been practicing all his life. "We all stumble," he said, timbre steady, syllables measured. "What matters is whether we rise together. Today, I want to honor the woman who taught me grit, grace, and the courage to try. My mother, Elizabeth Hayes." Applause. Whistles. A chant. "Elizabeth. Elizabeth." Nathan pressed a palm to his chest. Imitation humility perfect enough to pass inspection. He pivoted seamlessly to bullet points. Family values, elder care funding, a new wing at Hawthorne. As he spoke, the screens behind him showed footage of nurses, smiling seniors, staged candids of Nathan holding hands with people who could have been extras or saints. Delilah stood at the curtain and watched the crowd drink it in. She thought of Dr. Klein's folder. She thought of nights Elizabeth coughed herself back from the edge. She thought of a boy promising to be brave and a man rehearsing the virtue of it. A whisper at her elbow. Jonah, the assistant, eyes troubled. He told us to keep her plain, so people would sympathize. I noticed, Delilah said, not moving her stare from the stage. This feels wrong, Jonah repeated, as if the second time might make it right. I told him. He said. Feelings don't trend. Delilah finished, voice flat. I heard. Jonah swallowed. I'm sorry. Don't tell me, Delilah said softly. Tell him. On stage, Nathan reached his grand turn. But a speech about family means nothing if I don't let family speak for itself. He looked down at Elizabeth, smiling like a statue of a good son. Mother, would you share a few words? A producer hustled the mic closer. The crowd leaned as one body. The drone held its breath. Elizabeth folded her hands in her lap and lifted her face to the lights. Somewhere beyond the glare, Delilah exhaled. Victor's tablet ticker climbed. Avery's headset crackled. We're a minute ahead. Great for the package. Nathan bent close, voice a knife wrapped in velvet. Now, he whispered, beg. The microphone hissed, just loud enough to be heard where it shouldn't. A ripple moved through the front rows like a rumor waking up. Elizabeth didn't flinch. She looked at the son she had carried, and at the man the world had created, and chose which one to answer. Before she could speak, the host stepped forward, palm out, teeth shining. Ladies and gentlemen, he boomed. Mrs. Elizabeth Hayes has something to say. The crowd hushed, every phone a witness, every lens an altar. Would you forgive a child who only remembers you when the cameras are on? Tell us in the comments. The lights fell like a second sun. They burned through the haze, washed the color out of faces, and turned the stage into a white-hot witness stand. Elizabeth Hayes blinked into the glare and missed the edge of breath, just for a heartbeat. Her hands trembled. The wheelchair rolled a half-inch. For one dangerous second, the old woman everyone expected to beg almost folded. On the jumbo screen above her, Nathan's smile tilted into a smirk. There and gone, but the lens caught it, magnified it, fed it to 40,000 eyes. A hush rippled forward. Even the drones seemed to hover softer. Elizabeth drew in a slow breath, set it gently in her chest, and lifted her chin. Good evening, she said, voice smaller than the square and somehow larger than the city. I was told this is a celebration of family. Then let me begin like a mother. The crowd quieted. Somewhere near the barricades, a child shushed his father. I had a boy who loved to share, she said. When he was little and we had one piece of bread, he would always give me the bigger half. We're a team, he'd say. And when he broke a toy, he cried, not because it was broken, but because he thought he'd disappointed me. Do you hear what I'm saying? He had a soft heart. On the screen behind her, the production team, unsure whether to cut or continue, froze on Nathan's profile. The camera's autofocus hunted for something human and kept landing on the steel. Elizabeth's fingers stopped shaking. I raised that boy through winter after winter, she went on. We counted coins. We learned the price of medicine. We buried his father. Her voice thinned on the last sentence, then found its footing. On the night we came home from the hospital with no one left to bring home, my boy said, I'll take care of you, Mama. I'll make us so proud we'll forget how sadness feels. A murmur in the crowd. Sympathy, surprise, the sound of people leaning inward. Cutaway, internal. Nathan at 7, clutching a paper crown. Nathan at 10, both hands gripping his father's cold knuckles. Nathan at 15, promising a future to a kitchen with one light bulb. He saw them too. The memories flared like old film burning through. For a blink, He looked up at the screen and saw the boy he'd lost track of somewhere between his first lie and his first interview. Elizabeth folded her hands. He kept that promise. He worked and he fought and he climbed. She turned toward Nathan, and the tenderness in her eyes made the crowd hold its breath. "I am proud of what you built." On cue, the crowd started to applaud, relieved, eager for the sweet part of the package. Elizabeth lifted a palm. The applause died like rain at a red light. "But pride without truth is just costume," she said. "And today, my son asked me to wear a costume too. To look small so he could look bigger. To beg so he could be forgiven without changing." A faint gasp rolled across the front rows. Nathan's jaw set. The smirk vanished. On the Jumbotron, his eyes flicked left, toward Victor clutching the tablet, toward Jonah shrinking into his headset, then back to the mother he'd choreographed and could no longer direct. "You want me to beg, Nathan?" Elizabeth asked, not unkind. "All right. I beg. But not for me, for you." 1,000 phones tilted up at once. "I beg the God who sees you to show you the truth before pride buries you alive," she said. "Because I remember you before the suit, before the stage, before the world told you that image is a safer father than love." The hashtag crawlers on the far screens, silent until now, blipped to life. At Catmam NYC, "This is live?" At Street Lens, "Mike is hot, somebody cut it at Ray for real." "Why is he looking like that?" Flushed face at Markets Watch. Hayes stock down 3% on remarks. Elizabeth's voice softened. "I understand how you got here. We were poor. We lost too much. And I saved." She exhaled, fighting back the tears threatening to drop, steadied. "When your father started to fail, I hid little envelopes. Dollars, tens. I skipped meals and pretended I wasn't hungry. I cleaned houses at night and said I was walking for my health. I called it the Heartbeat Fund. So when the doctor finally said we had a chance, we would not lose it for lack of money." Nathan's head snapped up. The words Heartbeat Fund hit him like a bench slid out from under him. Elizabeth did not accuse. She simply told the truth as if setting a glass of water on a table. "The surgery never came," she said. "He died waiting. And the fund sat in a shoebox under my bed until the day you found it." The crowd shifted. Cameras refocused. The drone drifted lower as if curiosity had gravity. "You were 19, she continued. "You thought it was a miracle. You told me you had an idea, a company to build. You said you'd pay it back in months, that it was all for us. I believed you because I wanted to believe in the boy who shared his bread." Cutaway. Nathan at 19, breathless, waving a rough business plan. Elizabeth nodding through tears, a shoebox opening, a future misnamed as destiny. "You built an empire with that grief money, son," Elizabeth said, and the words landed without venom. "Only wait. This city calls you self-made. That is not true. You were mother-made, widow-made, pain-made." A dozen voices burst at once. At Courtcam, "Oh my God," at the Real Cleo. "This is elder abuse, how do we stop this?" At Econ Guy, "If verifiable, this is a crisis for Hayes Global." At NY Chorus, "Let her speak." On stage, Victor mouthed to the host, "Cut her mic." The host lifted a hand to step in. The audio engineer stared at his board and didn't move. Delilah at the curtain pressed a fist to her lips and prayed in a language that only mothers know. Elizabeth leaned toward the microphone, not to reach the crowd. She had them, but to reach her son. "I forgive you," she said. "I forgave you the first time you looked right at me and didn't see me anymore. I forgive you for wanting to win so badly you forgot who we were. Forgiveness is not a camera trick, Nathan. It's a life. It's the life I kept choosing while you learned to love applause." The square had gone church quiet. She turned her face slightly so the screens could see her eyes. But the world will not forget what you did today. Not because I am angry. Because truth has a longer memory than spin. Nathan's breath came sharp. He reached for the mic stand. Elizabeth did not move her hands. She finished the only sentence that had always been coming. Money can build towers, she said, but it cannot bury shame. The words rang out like a bell, bounced off glass and steel, and came back heavier. On every screen, in every phone, the line captioned itself. At Quotables, money can build towers, but it cannot bury shame. At Cityscope Live, we are witnessing a career end in real time at Nurse J. Protect this woman. Protect her now. Elizabeth exhaled, a long, spent ribbon of breath. Her fingers slipped from the armrest. The microphone wobbled. For a heartbeat it seemed she would steady. Then her head tipped forward, and the mic pitched off the stand and hit the floor with a metal crack that made the whole square flinch. Chaos tore the hush to pieces. People shouted. Security surged. The drone lurched sideways and buzzed out of frame. Delilah broke past a stagehand with a nurse's force that has no equal. She caught the wheelchair just as it rolled. "Missy," she called, already checking pulse, already counting breaths, already knowing too much. Paramedics ran from the wings with a stretcher. Someone yelled for oxygen. Someone else yelled for space. Someone on the barricade sobbed, "Get him away from her." And nobody knew whether they meant the cameras or the sun. The Jumbotron cut to static for a second, then to Nathan's face, frozen, truly frozen, as if the muscles had forgotten their choreography. He didn't step forward. He didn't kneel. He looked like a man who'd just remembered a promise and found it in pieces on the floor. At Live from NY, this is live, someone stop him at Truth Teller. No, let the world see. Delilah glanced up at Nathan through tears. There was no hate in her eyes, only an indictment softer than rage and sharper than justice. This is what pride costs. Clear. A medic barked. Give me the line. 1, 2, 3, lift. The stretcher rose. The wheelchair rolled back empty. The square watched a woman who had been asked to beg and had instead told the truth be carried through a tunnel of strangers, who parted like a sea that had suddenly remembered it could obey miracles. Nathan took one step, then another, as if the air had thickened. Someone from his team tried to tug him toward the wings. He shook them off without looking. On the far screen, his empire kept shining. Logos, campaigns, 1,000 curated kindnesses arrayed like shields. In the corner of the screen, a ticker began a slow, blinking descent. The siren wailed faintly as the paramedics disappeared down the ramp. Cameras pivoted, indecisive. Follow the stretcher or stay with the man who built the stage for his own undoing. They stayed with him. He stood inside a white light that no longer belonged to him, staring at nothing, while the city sucked in breath and prepared to exhale a judgment that would not be kind. If you were in that crowd, what would you do? Clap, cry, or walk away? Tell us in the comments. The camera held on Nathan's face, stunned and unguarded, as the ambulance doors slammed and the siren lifted. The crowd's roar shifted from awe to anger. And on the east screen, a headline flashed red. Breaking. Elizabeth Hayes rushed to hospital. The siren faded into the grid of the city, and in its place came a different scream, the internet. Within minutes, live feeds multiplied like sparks in dry grass. Clips of Elizabeth's final line, "Money can build towers, but it cannot bury shame," looped on every platform, subtitled, slowed down, remixed over piano and static. Hashtags detonated. Hashtag justice for Elizabeth, hashtag heartless son, hashtag mother-made, hashtag pride costs. A commentator on a live stream leaned into his mic. "We just watched a man manufacture forgiveness and get handed the truth instead." A caller sobbed. A stock ticker crawled. A million thumbs wrote a verdict. In the glass hive of Hayes Global, screens bled red. The investor chat pinged like hail. Victor Lang stalked the war room, tapping his tablet so hard the case clicked. Pull every soft brand campaign. Pause all scheduled posts. We need empathy statements from partners in the next hour. A junior VP, pale, read from his phone. Sable Bank just suspended our co-card. Also, the Impact Awards Committee issued a statement, monitoring developments. Of course they are, Victor said tightly. Schedule the board. Emergency session. Tonight. Already requested. The VP swallowed. 2 sponsors have withdrawn from next quarter's gala. Name them. Castor Media and... He hesitated as if the next word were a confession. Claremont. Victor didn't curse. He just stopped breathing for a full second. Then started again. Get me Nathan. Nathan didn't answer. He had fled to the penthouse, a cathedral of glass and white marble that now felt like a showroom for emptiness. He tossed his jacket, ripped open his collar, stood in the middle of the living room like a man who'd been evacuated from himself. His phone rang. Then again. Then again. He let it ring until the vibration felt like a drill in the bone. He answered without looking. What? Victor's voice came fast. You need to go to the hospital. Or to Hawthorne. Be seen. Quiet, no cameras, but someone will see. We leak it. You were with her. I wasn't, Nathan said, and the truth of that single sentence carved him. I was here. Then move. Do something human or you'll lose everything. A beat. Nathan stared at the television, where a still of Elizabeth's face filled the screen. Eyes bright, mouth mid-breath. Too late, he whispered and hung up. The phone rang again. He hurled it. It hit the wall, skittered across the marble, and died under a console table. Silence except for the TV. He picked up the remote with a hand that wasn't steady and pressed play. The footage began from the top. The stage, the sun, the hush, her voice. The penthouse's emptiness turned it into a cathedral. The line echoed off glass and came back heavier. I beg the God who sees you to show you the truth before pride buries you alive. He scrubbed forward, then back, then let it run. He watched her say heartbeat fund. He watched his own face on the Jumbotron when the camera cut to him. Caught between calculation and something naked. He pressed his fingers to his eyelids until fireworks burst behind them. The darkness didn't help. It only made the memory projector brighter. Flashback, a small boy at a formica table. Half a loaf of bread between him and his mother. He tears the bigger half and pushes it toward her. We're a team, Mama. Flashback, a hospital room that smells like metal and lemons. His father's chest rising in the strange rhythm of machines. Nathan's hand in his mother's hand. I'll take care of you. I'll make us proud. You'll see. Flashback, a shoebox under a bed. Rolled bills. A 19-year-old with fever in his eyes. It's capital, Mom. It's our way out. He's kissing her cheek, promising months. He is a boy burning with a yes, not a man weaponizing a stage. The present returned like a slap. Nathan hurled the remote. It cracked against the window, fell, snapped in two. He pressed his palm to the glass to steady himself. At street level, Times Square was a small galaxy. Up here, the city looked harmless. Up here, he could pretend the world still admired him. The pretense lasted one breath. He punched the window. Once, then again, until pain sang up his forearm and red brightened across his knuckles. A cracked comet line bloomed in the tempered pain. The glass did not break. It held, and so did the city, and so did the truth. Blood ran to his wrist, warm and undeniable. He slid down the window, sat on the cold floor, and stared at his hands like they belonged to someone who had done the damage in his name. The penthouse door opened a careful inch. Jonah stepped in, removed his headset like a hat in a church. "Sir." Nathan didn't look up. "What?" Jonah took in the busted phone, the shattered remote, the blood. He set a small brown box on the table. "It was in the office. Your board sent for you. Emergency session at 8. "Say no," Nathan said. "You don't have a vote," Jonah answered, not unkind. "They're invoking moral breach." Nathan laughed, and it wasn't a human sound. Jonah swallowed. "Sir, I'm resigning." That pulled Nathan's eyes up. Everyone resigns when the camera goes wide. "I'm resigning," Jonah repeated. "Because some things money can't fix. And I can't be paid to pretend otherwise." The words landed more gently than judgment and did more damage. Jonah set a folded paper on the table. His badge and a resignation letter still damp from his hand. "I'm sorry about all of it." Nathan looked away. "No," he said, failing to make it cruel. "You're not." Jonah left as quietly as he'd entered. Night fell uneasily. The city did not sleep. Commentary stacked on commentary. An op-ed went live titled "We Were All Raised by Elizabeth." A shaky phone video from backstage hit 10 million views. The whispered "now beg." People replayed that whisper as if decoding a crime. Victor called again from the war room, voice shredded. "I've got 3 board members on hold and 2 reporters outside your building. We need to show contrition. Hospital vigil. Chaplain. Statement drafted in your voice." "My voice," Nathan said, staring at the red smear drying on his palm. "Yes," Victor said. "Because in PR you never say no to the client's echo. Say what is true. Say you were wrong." Nathan looked at the TV and saw a loop of his mother's smile. The line walked back into the room. "Forgiveness is not a camera trick, Nathan. It's a life." He said nothing. Victor tried a different lever. "Do something human or you'll lose everything." The words hit different the second time. They sounded less like strategy and more like prophecy. Nathan closed his eyes. "Too late," he said again, softer. Not stubborn this time, stunned. On the screen, a panel argued about shareholder responsibility, new governance, brand safety. Underneath, a ticker named all the companies issuing statements. The list was long. He poured whiskey and didn't drink it. He went to the sink and ran water over his hands, watching pink swirl down the drain. He wrapped his knuckles in a dish towel and stared at the knot he'd made. Messy, insufficient, still bleeding. The doorbell buzzed like a mosquito that had learned to operate heavy machinery. He ignored it. A text popped on the cracked phone screen from an unknown number. "You need to be at the hospital." He didn't answer. Another text. "She gave you life. Give her an hour." He turned the TV up instead, crowding the room with voices not his own. "Money can build towers." The line echoed into the corners. He pressed his palms to his ears. The voice made it through anyway. At 7:48 p.m., Victor barged in without knocking, all crisis and expensive cologne. He stopped when he saw the blood. "Jesus. Sit down." Nathan didn't. What's left to manage? Consequences. Victor lowered his tone. "You're not a villain if you act like a son. Go. Hold her hand. Don't issue a statement first. Just go." Nathan's mouth went dry. Hospital corridors. Machines. The father he'd watched disappear to the beep of patient monitors. He tasted the old lemon metal air and couldn't swallow. "I can't," he said. Victor stared at him as if he'd confessed arson. "You can't or you won't." Nathan didn't answer. Victor's voice lost its polish. "Then this is where I leave you. For years I sold the idea that your heart was ahead of your face. Today you made me a liar." He hesitated, then added the only mercy he had left. "I hope I'm wrong. I hope you prove me wrong in 10 minutes. But if you don't, good luck surviving without doing one human thing." He left the key on the console table next to the ruined phone and closed the door behind him. Silence returned, a heavy, breathing animal. Nathan stood very still. The city in the windows was a painting he no longer believed in. He looked at the elevator door, at the hall, at the remote pieces glinting on the floor. He looked back at the TV. The news channel cut to a breaking banner. A new voice, calm, trained, slid into the room. "Breaking. Mrs. Elizabeth Hayes has died of cardiac arrest." The remote half fell from his hand. The towel unwound. The apartment swallowed the sound. Nathan's mouth opened. Nothing came out. The announcement did not end the night. It only changed its weather. By morning, black cars idled in front of St. Bridget's, their windows fogging in the breath of a city that had stayed up to argue. Camera tripods lined the church steps like metal thorns. Boom mics tilted toward a doorway where grief was supposed to pass and be catalogued. Inside, lilies crowded the air with sweetness almost cruel in its insistence. Elizabeth Hayes lay small among white fabric, a rosary threaded through fingers that had counted rent and blessings with the same patience. The pews filled with neighbors, nurses, the kind of people who learned your name when the world forgot it. At the back, strangers took seats they hadn't earned. The press passes around their necks dangled like apologies. When Nathan arrived, umbrellas sank and rose in a wave, and the sound rolled across the steps. Booze mixed with something more feral than anger. A chant tried to organize itself and failed. He kept his head down as he climbed. The suit was perfect. The man inside it was not. A camera flashed. Another. Questions flew like gravel. "Are you responsible? Will you step down? Did she forgive you?" He didn't answer. His tie felt like a leash. He kept walking until the doors swallowed the noise. The sanctuary hushed, then hardened. Heads turned. Some eyes forgave because churches make people brave. Others did not. He took the end seat of a pew far from the aisle and let the music find him because he did not know how to find anything else. Nurse Delilah spoke at the lectern, voice steady, hand shaking the paper only once. She told stories that were not for cameras. The way Elizabeth memorized the names of the night staff, the afternoon she tucked peppermints into other people's pockets, the morning she asked Delilah to pin the brooch, because the day deserves to be remembered, not just endured. People smiled. People cried. Nathan stared at his hands and saw them wrapped in a dish towel drying pink. When the priest finished and the procession began, Nathan stood with everyone else, moved with everyone else, and felt like a counterfeit version of a son in a parade he had not earned. Outside, the media had multiplied. The hearse door shut with a sound that folded the day. Sirens clicked on, blue and white threads unspooling through traffic, and the cars followed toward Greenwood Hill where the city's dead get their view. At the graveside, the sky lowered until it touched the tips of black coats. Raindrops fattened, then committed. Umbrellas bloomed. Cameras covered themselves in plastic like secrets trying to stay dry. The priest said the words that have mercy built into their architecture. The wind stole some, the rain softened others. When he nodded to Nathan, the nod asked for a speech and a miracle. A penitent son, a sentence that makes sense of everything. Nathan stepped forward and took the flimsy funeral mic. It weighed as much as judgment. He opened his mouth. The crowd opened theirs first. "Too late!" Someone shouted from the edge of the tent. "Where were you?" came from the other side. A chorus rose, raw, unarranged. "Shame! Shame!" Then a chant found its spine. "Justice for Elizabeth!" The mic sputtered, overwhelmed. Nathan stood, then faltered, the words he'd rehearsed shattering into unhelpful syllables. He tried again, the chant swelled to drown him. He was a man underwater, flailing in air. Delilah, face wet with rain and something older, took one step as if to steady him, then stayed where she was. She wasn't sure who needed saving. The priest reached for the mic to rescue the moment. Nathan let it go and stepped back, shoes sinking slightly into the mud. The world tilted. For a second, he thought the ground would oblige the chant and open. He stumbled away before it could, past a row of cameras that blinked like patient animals, past reporters who closed their questions into their coats and saved them for later. He walked until the cemetery fell behind him and the city swallowed him again. He didn't have a destination, only a compass that spun toward the first place that hurt. Times Square looked wrong in rain, the colors smeared, the LED saints weeping neon. The banners were gone now, the stage dismantled. But the barricade marks remained like a bruise. In the center, where a white platform had tried to convert mercy into marketing, someone had set up a folding chair. People had buried it in flowers. Daisies, roses, a cheap plastic bouquet from a drugstore. A child's drawing rained into watercolor. Nathan stopped at the edge and took it in. The chair was the wrong shape for an altar and perfect anyway. He walked closer. The rain didn't ask permission. His hair flattened. Water traced his jaw and hid nothing. The suit took on weight until it hung like confession. He expected the square to spit him out. It did not. New York has no time to curate live penance. It just witnesses. He sank to his knees. Marble had given him permission to break in private. Concrete did not care what it was holding. He rested his hands on his thighs because the ground didn't want them and held still because movement felt false. Her voice arrived not as sound but as a pressure in the air, the way a memory can lean its head on your shoulder. I beg the God who sees you to show you the truth before pride buries you alive. The screens around him were on, but not with him. A sneaker ad looped. A weather alert crawled. Somewhere a music video tried to convince strangers to dance. And then, as if the city itself needed to finish what it started, one auxiliary monitor glitched, flashed, and for a brief, stubborn second replayed her face. Eyes bright, mouth mid-breath. It was enough. He bowed his head. "Mom," he whispered. The word a boy sneaks through a cracked door. "You win." A couple under one umbrella slowed, then stopped. A courier paused at the edge of the memorial and muttered a prayer he didn't admit to believing. Someone lifted their phone, then lowered it, ashamed of their first instinct. Raindrops plunked hollowly on plastic-wrapped bouquets. A handwritten note bled its ink into loops and became art. Nathan reached out, not for the flowers, not for the attention, but because his body needed to touch something that didn't recoil. That's when he saw it. Not tucked, not hidden. Just waiting the way mercy sometimes does when we've run out of bargaining chips. A small white envelope lay under the chair leg, edges softened by damp, handwriting intact as a decision. For Nathan, when the noise fades. He stared at it the way you stare at a cliff before you jump. His hand hovered, then closed around the paper. It felt like a bird that had decided to trust a palm. Flash. Another. The square remembered its other vocation. Nathan. A voice broke from the fringe of umbrellas, the reporter from Cityscope, hair plastered to her forehead, eyes sharp. Any remorse? Did you mean to humiliate her? Are you stepping down? Asterisk asterisk. He didn't look up. He held the envelope as if it might float away if he loosened. Questions flew with the accuracy of stones. What's in your hand? Is that from her? Do you have a statement? He slipped the envelope under his jacket, against his shirt, where body heat could convince it art would survive weather. He stayed on his knees one beat longer. Then he stood, mud marking the knees of a suit cut to never touch the earth. The reporter edged closer, voice pushed hard by deadline. "Do you regret what you did?" The rain answered for him. It drummed on billboards and coats and the one empty chair with its crown of flowers. Somewhere, a siren wrote a line through the air. He pulled the lapels of his jacket in, shielding the letter, and turned away from the microphones. "Mr. Hayes." He walked. Not fast. Not theatrical. Just forward, through a crosswalk that blinked permission, past a hot dog cart steaming like a street altar, into a curtain of water that the cameras could not follow without fogging. On the far screen, a news crawl tried to keep up with the city's appetite. Board calls emergency vote. Sponsors suspend. Public vigil at Hawthorne. None of it mattered in the space between his chest and the paper warming there. He reached the corner where the square narrows itself back into streets and stopped under a scaffolding that sweated rain. His hands shook the way truth does before it's read. He almost opened the envelope. The flap begged for the smallest courage. From behind, a camera clicked. He closed his fist and put the letter deeper inside his jacket. Not yet. Not here. Not for them. He stepped out from the scaffold and let the rain erase any line that had claimed him earlier. A bus whooshed by, misting his face. The city smelled like wet newsprint and metal and the possibility that people who fail loudly can still stand up correctly. He did not check his phone. He did not angle for good side. He didn't map his walk for optics. He just walked. Letter against heart. Head lowered, mouth closed. The memorial behind him collected more flowers. The chair waited like a sentinel. And somewhere the square's single disobedient monitor glitched again, flashed a still of a woman who had told the truth, and went black. What do you think is inside that letter? Drop your prediction in the comments. Some victories don't end with revenge. They begin with redemption. Morning came in gray streaks and window drip. Nathan stayed off the grid. No phone, no PR, no mirrors. He locked the apartment door, drew the curtains halfway, and sat at the edge of the dining table with the white envelope laid out like a fragile animal catching its breath. His fingers hovered. He slid a nail beneath the flap. The paper sighed open. Inside, 3 pages lined, the ink a little wobbly where the pen had paused to remember. He unfolded the first sheet and the room shrank to the size of her handwriting. My son, if you are reading this, it means the world is loud again. You were always brave with noise. Be brave with silence too. His vision blurred. He blinked hard, then kept going. I have forgiven you already. Don't argue with a mother's past tense. Forgiveness is not a press release, it is a practice. Start today. Practice on yourself first. A drop hit the page. He realized it was his. He turned to page 2. When I had nothing, I still kept a little aside for people who had less. I like to call it my grace money. It is small because I am small. But grace is like water. It finds low places and fills them quietly. His throat closed. He pressed the heel of his palm against his chest and read the last page through the ache. Go back to where love found you. Hungry, barefoot, stubborn and kind. There you will meet the boy who shared his bread, and he will show you what to do. When the noise fades, listen. I will be there. The signature was her first name, not Mom, as if she were standing beside him as a person, not only a title. He folded the pages carefully, kissed the top sheet like it might warm, and slid them back into the envelope. For a moment he simply breathed with it. 2 creatures surviving the same storm. Then he stood, put on the same suit from yesterday without fixing the wrinkles, and left the apartment by the service elevator. Hawthorne Care Home smelled like lemon cleaner and tea again. Life insisted. At the front desk, the volunteer stiffened when she saw him. He took off his cap. his voice smaller than his reputation. "I'm here to see where she lived." The volunteer hesitated, then buzzed Nurse Delilah. She arrived with her hands still damp from washing mugs. For one heartbeat her face was a wall. Then it softened in that human way walls never can. "I'm not here for cameras," he said. "I know," she said. "They would have found you already." She led him down the corridor. The chessboard in the lounge waited for Mr. Alvarez to rethink last night's mistake. Sister Bea's peppermints clicked in a porcelain bowl. Someone had left a sweater on a chair the way people leave sunlight in good rooms. Delilah opened room 14B. The bed was made. The brooch sat in a dish like a period at the end of a sentence too true to edit. She gave things away, Delilah said, almost to herself. Not because she had extra, but because she always believed someone else needed the lesson more than she needed the money. "What did she give?" he asked, afraid of the answer and needing it. "Bus fare. Rent gaps. School shoes. A week of groceries. She had a little drawer we called the blessing drawer." Delilah smiled sadly. "She wouldn't let me label it. Said labels make people polite when they should be grateful." Nathan looked at the dresser. Top drawer, center. He pulled it gently. Inside, neatly banded bills. Not much, yet somehow enormous. Beneath them, an index card in her handwriting. For a mother who thinks she has failed. For a child who needs to be believed. His breath left him. He put the drawer back, hand shaking. "There's something else," Delilah said. "She asked me to keep it by the window because she liked how the morning found it." She crossed to the sill and lifted a small wooden box, smooth from years of being touched. On the lid, carved in careful letters, "Grace." Delilah offered it. He didn't take it immediately, as if the wood might measure his worth. Then he set his palms under its weight. He opened it. Inside lay old photos, a paper crown on a boy's head, flour on their noses at a tiny kitchen counter, his father's arm around both of them, and beneath the photos, an envelope with a bank logo and a check already signed. The memo line read, "Nathan Hayes Scholarship, for one mother and one child." A folded note was tucked beneath the check. He unfolded it. "Start again where love once found you." He sat on the edge of the bed, the box on his knees, the room holding its breath. For a few long seconds he didn't cry and didn't speak. He just shook quietly, the way buildings do before they decide not to fall. Delilah sat in the visitor's chair and looked out the window to give the moment somewhere to go. "She said you'd know how to make it grow." He nodded. "I do." "Then do it," Delilah said, not unkind. "Do it where nobody is watching." The hospital was loud with fluorescent mercy. Anonymous forms were signed. A payment was made in a way that couldn't be traced back to headlines. Bills vanished in the software like held breath. A clerk looked at the number, then at him, then back at the number. "Anonymous?" she asked. He nodded. "Just make it easier to be alive here." He walked the corridors where he had once learned what endings sound like. He paused outside the ICU and listened to machines negotiate with time. He didn't go in. He didn't need to. He had come to pay a bill that wasn't a bill. Then he left without telling anyone who he was. That night, Times Square did what it always does. Sold attention. But just before midnight, a single billboard blinked, glitched, and replaced a sneaker ad with a still photo of Elizabeth laughing in a chair, Delilah's hand in the corner of the frame. Underneath, white text. "Money can build towers, but it cannot bury shame." Elizabeth Hayes. No logo. No sponsor line. Just the sentence and a woman who had not begged. People stopped. Some clapped without knowing why. Someone took a knee in the rain, not to worship, but to agree. On a side street 2 blocks away, Nathan stood in the shadow of scaffolding and watched the light carry her voice. In his pocket, his phone buzzed with a tidal wave of consequences. Board votes, statements, threats. He didn't look. He left the sidewalk and crossed to a late-night print shop. The clerk looked up, startled, then shrugged in the universal language of pay first, ask later. They printed forms. Papers were signed. A foundation file was opened. A beneficiary line was blank. He filled it with a name no one would expect. When he stepped back into the night, the city smelled like wet ink and second chances. He turned his face toward Hawthorne. The wooden box was tucked safely under his arm. The scholarship check lay in a safer place now, where his lawyers couldn't find it to ruin it with strategies. He stopped at the corner. A bus exhaled. A siren threaded a distant block. The envelope, the one with her letter, rested against his ribs like a metronome. He closed his eyes. For once, he didn't rehearse. "I will start again," he said to no one and to her. "Where love found me." He took 3 steps, then 6, then 10, and the decision hardened into movement. He had one more stop before the city slept. Hawthorne's night desk buzzed him in without asking. Delilah was off shift. Mr. Alvarez was humming low in a corner chair. Nathan left the wooden grace box on the reception counter with a typed note folded beneath it. The note said, "For the drawer that never runs out. For the mothers who think they have. Anonymous." He didn't wait to be thanked. He didn't stay to explain. Outside, the rain finally loosened its hold. The air tasted like metal and mint. He walked back toward the square because sometimes you have to pass the wound to be sure it's healing. The billboard flickered again, brighter. The quote held like a vow. He stood directly beneath it, a small figure under a large truth. He let the light wash his face until the past felt less heavy and the future felt less fake. When he finally turned away, he wasn't lighter, exactly. Just more willing to carry what still needed carrying. He took a breath that did not hurt. He whispered into the leftover rain. "I'm coming home, Mom." He put his hands in his pockets and walked into the dark streets that led, eventually, back to the small places where love learns your name again. If this story touched you, type "Grace" in the comments and tell us your favorite line from Elizabeth's letter. If you haven't subscribed yet, this is the right time to do so. Every like, share, and support from you keeps us going. You matter to us and we don't take it for granted. Thank you.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as interesting and even more intriguing than you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.